these teachers coming to maybe a workshop that I'm facilitating, and they're saying, it's not just even my students I want this for my kids. This is where the jobs are, and I have no idea how. I am not a scientist. There's no scientist I know in my community. How can I get my kids interested in this? Because this is all I'm hearing is that this is where the jobs are. And I think some of the research that's out there that's really compelling says that through that middle school age, 6th to 8th grade, if kids have already sort of envisioned themselves as a scientist, that they are 2 to 3 times more likely to go into that field and think about themselves being able to pursue that field. But that means that by middle school, you have to have an experience where you've been able to see yourself as a scientist.
First of all, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, are at the core, at the heart of many jobs these days. We have a huge need in the workforce. We have lots of important decisions to make as citizens of our country that have to do with science and understanding science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. If you just look at the news these days, STEM is very much an inherent part of that. STEM is an area that shows underrepresentation for girls and for children and adults of minority groups. So I think it's really important that we promote STEM learning, that we begin to think about the ways in which we can broaden the perspectives that we have in STEM, and that we can engage with all children and all adults in thinking about STEM and what's important. Certainly one of the things that we know about girls, for sure, looking at the percentage of women in the various sciences around the world, is that it's not a capacity issue. And I mean, there's lots of evidence that suggests that, but just to be clear, it's not about capacity. It's about potentially cultural or social influences that change whether women pursue science. And it may be issues of whether they pursue or whether they're seeing another field that's just more appealing. But there's a lot of evidence that suggests that there are strategies that are very much more effective for girls and children of minority background that are much more encouraging. Having science experiences that are more process-based, having exposure to role models that reflect who they are, being able to work collaboratively and recognize that there's learning that can happen together and for a social good, social purpose. Those are all really important in thinking about what makes science appealing, certainly to girls, which is my area of expertise. There's a lot of discussion in the field about when the critical moments for engaging students in science are. There's a lot of evidence that early on is important. Everything from preschool, when parents, family members can make a really significant impact in terms of supporting learning and promoting exploration into an area of interest. That's an important area. Elementary school, there's a number of studies that have shown that elementary school is a critical time for students to begin to think about what they're interested in and where they might head in their future. Middle school is a drop-off point. I think there's discussion about in the field about whether middle school is evidence of the drop-off that's already happened in the past because of the ways in which being interested in science can present itself in classes and in hobbies and engagement, or is that a critical moment? My sense of things from my own experience and from a lot of the literature is that groundwork is set really early in children's lives about what they care about, what they're interested in. And I think that for many, that happens early on, but I would hate to have people think that's the only window, right? So there's evidence also that there's transformation that can happen in high school, and I mentioned earlier there's transformation in adults. We've had adults that have participated in programs, and as a Girl Scout leader, participated in a program and wrote me and said, "I'm going back to graduate school. You got me feeling like I could do science, and now I want to really explore this further." So I think the window's wide.
You have a group of kids, and you get through to 1 or 2 of those kids, you can consider your program a success. And we had these brother and sister was one that turned around and did the gardening program with us for 1 year. And when we started it, because we're starting later, because it's after the kids got out of school, but we had a brother and sister that was in there, and they come back the following year, and they were bringing things in. They said, these are things that we learned how to grow last year. And this is a garden we have, and she's talking about, she's growing these different flowers, he was growing these vegetables, and his mother was turning around and making these different things that they planted in their yard because they copied what we were doing over at the year before. You're planting seeds, and in the future, some of this stuff's going to come back to these kids because they might not be interested now, but maybe in a little later years, and you don't know, even kids, they can't do something here now, but maybe next year they move somewhere else. Say, hey, I got a little space I can do something with out there now. Because some of these kids can, some of them, they don't have nothing at all. There's no place, if you don't put it in a pot, there's nothing there that they can do. But every individual child is an individual, and they all look at things different ways. But you plant a few seeds, some of them you get something out of them, a lot of them you don't, but you get a few successes there, you can feel good about it.